What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Living Electric. We're here with a special guest, Jack Leonard Birt. Recently blew up on TikTok, so we thought we'd have him on the podcast and hopefully steal some of his fame there, so people come listen to the podcast. But first met Jack a few years ago because he bought a Tesla around the same time I did, so we met up and chatted for a little bit. He's been doing social media for a while as well. So, Jack, thanks for being on, and interested to hear your story here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So do you want to give kind of a brief summary of your life so far and how you've led to where you're at now?
Yeah, so let's see. I grew up in Ohio, and then I moved out west to Colorado for about the last seven previous years. And then I always come back to Ohio, so I was able to get the Tesla with being able to do Lyft and DoorDash. So saved up enough money to get the Tesla for it's a standard range plus. And then I moved out to Colorado by myself. It's just me and my cat. And yeah, and then I saved up also enough money to buy a tiny house. And then I recently started living that about 8 months ago. So
awesome. And what was the main motivation to live in a tiny house? Because I think it's obviously a big change from what most people are used to. What was your motivation there?
So I lived in a regular house growing up all my life with just my parents, and then I moved out west where I was living in a regular apartment. Rent was almost $1,100 a month, and I guess ultimately just like escaping like the rat race of life. So it's more of just saving money and living below your means. So that was the whole purpose of living tiny, and eventually moving fully off the grid, so that way I can be self-sustainable.
That's awesome. So Jack, I want to know, just because you mentioned your cat, what's your cat's name?
Phoenix. My cat's Phoenix. Yeah.
That's awesome. So,
Thank you.
So you and Phoenix have really like traveled across the country then in your Tesla. Like, how was that experience with like using the supercharger network and traveling with your pet?
So I've went almost coast to coast 3 times so far. I've went to Utah with it, and then like southern Utah, which is like pretty much no man's land. And then all across the U.S., so like Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, everywhere. I have no difficulty whatsoever with the Standard Range Plus. It's more of stopping every hour and a half. But yeah, I have no problem doing that. It's if anything, it's cheaper. and it's a very chill drive. Like as you guys probably know, it's more of a on autopilot the entire time. So. Yeah,
that does make driving a lot easier.
Yeah, but it's probably one of the best road trips I've had. Even when at first I was like super nervous going down through southern Utah, just because like when I first got it. I went to Zion Arches and everything with it. So, yeah. I was more nervous of like running out of obviously charge, but I had no problem.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And now you live in the tiny house. You're grid connected right now, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so you charge your Tesla off the tiny house, which is a pretty cool setup.
Thank you.
And then you're looking to get into solar eventually, right, and go completely off grid.
Yep,
so what's that process looking like right now?
Yeah, so I'm on regular electric, hauled in. We got a telephone pole, and then trenched out some electric out here. So I'm on a 50 amp breaker, so a 240 plug. It usually takes anywhere from four like if I'm on a very, very low charge, it takes about 4 hours to charge. So that's what the current situation is. When I go solar, at first it'll be just the tiny house. So it'll be just the tiny house at first, and then we'll see how much, because so that way the Tesla will be on the grid. So that way I'm seeing how much I'm only using on the Tesla itself. And then we'll create a solar system and probably a solar array to power the Tesla.
Sorry, I had a question, but I drew a blank. So it's still pretty early here. So
no, you're fine.
So Jack, personally, I've always been really interested in tiny homes. Like whenever I get a chance to either pre-COVID, when all like the county fairs would happen, some of the manufacturers around us would bring tiny homes for people to check out. Can you kind of go into the process of like how you chose to go into a tiny house and like what it was like picking things to make it fit your life?
Yeah. So specifically, my tiny house took about 3 years of research and then 6 months of design and then only 3 weeks to build this thing. So
wow.
I guess the process was it was like super fast once they did get it started. But I guess the process for me was at the very beginning more of like, what do I do first? Because I didn't want to live in a tiny house at first. I wanted to live in a shipping container. So you build these shipping containers, and then you can add on to them as much as you can. Stack them 4 high, as big as you want. And then and then I looked at that with the land and everything. It was more of it was just way over my budget. It was almost around like 100K with land and doing like a construction loan. So,
wow. And is that because they have to build the shipping container like on site? It can't be on wheels like a tiny house. Is that kind of the main difference?
Yeah, exactly. Gotcha. Exactly. And and there's nobody, I mean, there in Colorado, when I was living in there was people that were making shipping containers, but that was just their pricing. Like the price for a shipping container build, like a 20-foot shipping container, was like $60K.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's always something like we've looked into that personally, like trying to do like a shipping container home, because everything you see online is so, like just beautiful, like all the modern designs and everything you can do with it. And it was so hard to figure out the exact pricing of what you're looking at, because every website's like $5,000 and there's $50,000. And it's like, what's the most accurate pricing here? So it's interesting to hear that.
Yeah. Like, so that was like the first idea of mine. And I realized that it was out of the budget. And, ultimately, the more I looked into these alternative lifestyles, I wanted to be fully mobile. My job's already mobile. I'm doing Lyft and DoorDash, and obviously Tesla's mobile. It's it's electric, and I wanted everything to be electric. So mobile, and then also electric. And with its shipping container, you're kind of gridlocked, like wherever you are. So with that said, I was just like, okay, let's look at van life, maybe like literally living in like one of those camper vans, a nice one. I realized there's too much problems with I wouldn't say too much problems with van life, but you have a lot of now you have to look at like the motors, and then like and then also just maintenance itself. You got a motor now instead of also a house. So and then the tiny house was then it looked at, and also the van life situation. It's very expensive. If you get a brand new Sprinter, that's 50,000-60,000, and then not including converting it into. I mean, these things can get almost to 100K.
Yeah. I've done some research on that too, and I think the Winnebago is like the Mercedes Winnebago, like camper van is like almost $200,000. It's crazy, like if it fits your life, then you go for it. But at that cost, I agree with you. Like build the tiny home, and then if it has wheels, take it with you, and that way you still have a bigger space and essentially a place to call home.
Yeah, exactly. And then so I looked into that, and I was just like, well, what am I going to do with my Tesla if I have a van?
Yeah.
Like I can't
strap it to the roof.
I don't think yeah, I can't put it on a like a trailer essentially. So I was like, and this is weird. I'm like driving a gas vehicle and I'm about electric. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that. So the next option was looking at tiny houses, and I think I scoured a website like every single day for 3 years. Finally found a builder, and I connected with them. And then it was more of like, do I buy the tiny house first, or do I buy land first, or what do I do? So that was like the next big difficult situation, and nobody online's really talking about like how to begin doing this stuff. So it was all just kind of like I had to do it on my own, talk to people, everything like that. And then so I got a builder, and then I still went back from like, do I buy land, or do I buy this tiny house, or what I do? And I realized that I don't really need land, because if I'm in a tiny house, it's on wheels and they're RV certified. So if anything, get the tiny house first, and then I could be in, because initially I was about to live in a tiny house community. They're all over the country, and they're like-minded people. You can even be in an RV park. So I was like, okay, I already have land, essentially. So I was like, okay, we'll just do that. So I linked up with the builder. It was a nonprofit from Colorado, and it took about 6 months of design, and then like I said, three weeks to build it, and then they moved it wherever I needed to go for free.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
They deliver it everywhere in the country. They deliver it to like Alaska and everywhere in between.
Wow. That's great.
And I'm very lucky to have the tiny house for what the price is. It's like a lot of people are very mind blown about how I got it, but so I got my tiny house for $22,000, and I did not build it. This is fully custom made by a company, and the reason that is because I signed the initial agreement before the lumber prices shot up.
Okay, that's awesome.
So I love
timed the tiny house market.
No, I did. I really did. Yeah. I was just like, wow, that couldn't be any more perfect, because I think the real price of this tiny house is sitting around $45K.
Jack, I'm happy you brought up that that there's not a lot of communication or like conversation online about like what the process is like, because that's exactly what we found. Like, we've been looking at tiny homes for probably almost the same time span, like 2 to 3 years, just because we have an interest in it. And I can't tell you how hard it is to find information. Like, do I have to live on the West Coast to get a tiny home? Can they ship it to, the Midwest? It's just, there's so much unknown out there. So I'm happy to hear you brought that up and how you work through that. But do you have any advice for listeners who might be in that same position?
Well, I seen that was a problem, and I did everything on my own for 3 years. It probably would have took me way sooner if there was somebody out there that was actually making that type of content. And that's ultimately why I started doing my TikTok. And I think that's why my TikToks start blowing up, and here I am now. Like, nobody's talking about it. Nope. And I guess it's kind of a gray area, because it's not like a traditional house. It's not like a traditional house. So it's very difficult. You have to deal with, if you get pieces of land, you have to deal with square foot minimums. You have to deal with zoning laws, and ultimately, like, obviously no HOA or anything like that.
Which is good.
Yeah. And then So zoning, no HOA, and then pretty much you want a place where that has no building permit like required. That is like essentially when if you find land that way, you're probably going to be out in the middle of nowhere, like how I am. So you're going to want to look at a zoning called R1 zoning, and that's for mobile homes. But so that essentially that's what the tiny house is considered. But then you have to factor in, you got to see if the county will allow. So mine's 240 square feet. If you have to factor in the square foot minimums of that county. And when I was out in Colorado, the square foot minimum was like 400 to 600 square feet.
Okay.
So yeah,
Twice as
very
size.
hard. Yeah, very hard. And but a way to get around that is literally just contact the county. And ultimately, if it's not like, they just want something that is very well put together and not making their county not look like, they don't want like something very I don't know how to explain it. Just more of
They don't want like a haphazard shed just kind of sitting there and calling it a building.
Yeah, exactly. And ultimately, like, it needs to be certified, which this tiny house is, and yeah, but all the bells and whistles type of thing. The tiny house market's so new that there's really no there's no, I guess there is rules, but there's no rules in a way. It's more of you have to go find out and talk to the county yourself.
Gotcha. That's good advice.
Yeah.
Take it into your own hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's multiple ways to get, I guess, on some property, which I found out just through my own research. You got RV parks all over the place. You got tiny house communities. And then you got, let's just say your parents have a lot of land. Or a friend has a lot of land. If you're on the very back of their property, it is now considered an ADU, which is an alternative dwelling unit. And you don't have to have any type of permits or anything.
Wow.
Is that because there's usually another property on that land? So that's their primary residence or whatever.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay.
They won't even see it as anything. It's not a shed or nothing.
Yeah, it's just like an RV parked on your land.
Exactly. Yep.
Interesting.
Exactly. Yep.
Wow. Okay. Is there anything in the design process of kind of picking out specific pieces you wanted in your tiny house that either surprised you or maybe like you were happy to see you were able to customize or adjust?
So the whole thing was fully customizable.
Okay.
They gave me a layout, and I asked them how far can I tweak this to my needs, and let's see how customizable you guys can get. Let's see if and then they were like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, I have a Tesla. And they're like, oh. I was just like, and I would love to charge my Tesla on this tiny house. And they were like, I think we can do it, Jack. So nice. I was like, okay, let's do it. So yeah, the whole layout is fully customizable. If you've seen tiny houses in general, the walkway, so this is a staircase. If you go up in the staircase, there is a thing called a walk through bedroom, and ultimately, usually the loft area is just straight up to the stairs, and you have to crawl up into the loft area. Well, I have like a full blown walk through area where I've had friends come in here and they're well over 6 foot and they're just fine.
That's awesome.
Nice.
So yeah, it's the whole thing is like very strategically placed. The firewood stove is right in the middle of the tiny house to not have all the heat on one side type of thing. And then the stove, the whole kitchen area is onto the left. I didn't have a choice to do that, but it was more of the customizable part was more of, I want this whole tiny house to be fully electric. And that was due to me knowing, eventually one day I want to be fully off the grid and solar. So yeah, that was like the full, that was like my main requirements, it to be fully solar or fully electric, and then have no other bills like propane or gas or anything.
Yeah, I'm glad you're going that route, because I don't think a lot of people, like when they think off grid, they might think of like electricity, but then you start kind of looking at all the individual pieces and not really realize like what actually goes into that.
So I subscribed to your YouTube channel last night, and I was watching your intro video, and you talked about like collecting rainwater to eventually like filter to drink, to shower with, and utilizing that. What are some of the ways that you're working towards going off grid? Because I think a lot of our listeners would probably be interested in that.
Yeah. So like more of like my goals, or just like how to
either or, like how you're working towards it.
Okay. Yeah. So ultimately, the first, the tiny house was already coming with a composting toilet. And for the people that don't know what a composting toilet is, it's not a regular toilet or an incinerator toilet. So pretty much I'm creating my own compost. It gets separated from the liquids and solids. The composting area. It's let's see. It's pretty much just soil. I create my own type of soil. It's not dirt. It's I forget what it's called. Essentially, it's soil that like decomposes, helps decompose anything, and then also I use a mixture of cedar wood chips for the smell, and I combine both of them, and then you put that in the very back, and so that's what came with the tiny house. And ultimately, instead of having a regular toilet where you get a regular sewage system, you'd have to create like sewage pipelines and everything, and that could get anywhere from 10 to 15,000 upwards to even more to build that. And then so that was the first step of like trying to limit absolutely everything to the point where it's just, I guess it's just like the necessities in life. Like, do I really need a running toilet? Maybe not. I can. I'm sure we've all used like an outhouse before or something like that.
Yeah. I want to circle back. You said an incinerator toilet. Like, I just pictured like a flamethrower mixed with like a bidet. I'm assuming that's not how it is. What is that? I've never heard of that.
Well, essentially that's kind of what it is. Yeah, like I don't know the whole I guess details about it, just because I never got into it.
Sounds
but I mean, it's 100%.
Yeah,
can you
right.
imagine?
Yeah. I think that's an invention that shouldn't exist. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'm going to dig into that, because now I'm curious to know what that is.
But that's an alternative to composting. You could have incinerator toilets.
Interesting.
Or like mine's a Nature Head's composting toilet. So
okay.
Yeah, that was the first, I guess, first thing that I was wanting to get into, and I was just like, okay, let's try that out. I mean, I have a place that I created my own compost out of like four pallets, and all I do is dump the compost in there, and then once I have enough, it's all biodegradable. Everything's like, it just turns into soil essentially. So later down the road, I'm going to create like flower beds. Cool. You don't utilize this stuff for your food for obvious reasons, but just flowers make stuff look pretty around the house. So that was like the first that was the first thing that I wanted in a tiny house, or was about to try to go off grid. That came with the tiny house. And then let's see, for heat, obviously I got a firewood stove. The firewood stove, if electric ever goes out, which it might in a couple of days from where we are right now, I'll still have heat. So that was another different thing. I've never had a firewood stove. I've grown up with a firewood stove, but I never did anything. I never hacked wood ever in my life. So I was like, this all seems very, very fun, and like way cheaper. So instead of paying $150 to $200+ electric bill because of you're running your heat all the time, mine is way cheaper due to me just running a firewood stove. So I was trying, like, I looked at everything possible to eliminate all the expenses, and see how cheaply, I guess, somebody could live and also still, like, I'm not like I have tech, I have a computer, stuff like that. But so I guess that's like the new age off-grid living.
Yeah, you're not completely disconnected.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that would be like the second part, and then so next summer I'm it'd be this coming summer. Once it gets a little bit warmer, I will start to do rain catching systems. So right now I haul in my own water. I have a 30-gallon water tank underneath my sink, and I haul in my own water by 2 5-gallon jugs. So if you ever seen like race fuel jugs, and they have like a pipe and everything, or like a hose. I cut out a hole in the 30-gallon water tank right inside, and that was due to in the summer I haul it in through the outside. There's a spigot outside and everything, and I'm able to do that. But it's getting colder here, so it froze up. So I had to figure out something to keep get water and fill that 30-gallon water tank up. So I cut a hole in the 30-gallon water tank and plugged her off, capped it off. And now I just I fill up the water through like city water. I have there's probably a lot of places where you can get free water, like city water. You can just fill up. I know where I live, it's like 100% free. So
wow,
everybody does it. In my do you guys have places like that, or
not that I know of?
Not that I know of, because we're on grid here, so we got just water coming in. I haven't even looked into it honestly to see if that's a possibility.
And I know our utilities up here want money, so I'm sure they nip that in the bud.
Well,
but I do know there are some springs around here. I was actually talking to a barista at one of our local cafes, and she was telling us that you can go to some of these like springs and fill up your water for free. And I guess there's like a Google Maps for that. So I haven't checked it out yet, but I thought that would be pretty cool to look into.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's because like I've lived here all my life and I just kind of knew that. But I found one in Colorado too. I mean,
wow.
I feel like they're everywhere, but I don't know, maybe not in the big cities. I think, the population I live in now is like less than 1,000.
Wow.
So it's like super local type of thing. Maybe not in the big cities because they probably don't want people to know about it or something.
It's the best kept secret.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. I guess that's, I never really thought about it. It's just so normal to me.
Huh.
I mean, even though I was living in Denver for 8 years, it was just, I don't know. I grew up out in the middle of the country, so I always kind of researched that stuff or knew about it.
That's really interesting.
yeah, so that was one. That's another thing. I get free water. So and then ultimately for the rain catching system, instead of it's not that hard of work to haul in the water. It's just time consuming.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta run back and forth. Maybe takes half hour to fill up 30 gallons, but that 30 gallons lasts about a week and a half for me.
Okay.
And then with the rain catching system, next year I'm planning on buying either a 300 or 500 gallon above ground water tank.
Okay.
So it's a big, imagine like a silo looking thing. And it's black and it has to be black so that way it doesn't collect algae.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more of a if it's see-through or anything, you got the solar rays and everything that's going to be ultimately making the water have algae in it and it's very toxic. But you also have to treat this water. And that's something that I still have to do a little bit more research on. You can't just collect rainwater. Like, I'm not going to be drinking this water, but I'll probably obviously I'm taking showers with it, washing my dishes, and then maybe cleaning my toothbrush with it.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, definitely useful.
I have to make it. Yeah, I have to do my research on cleaning it before it goes out of my faucets. But from what I've seen, it's not too difficult. I can talk more about if you guys want the gray water system, because that's very unique.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Yeah, so the gray water system, usually when you think of gray water, you think of flushing a toilet, and then you have it in a like a sewage system. So you have to buy all that. Well, due to me not having a regular toilet, I don't really have gray water. The only, I guess, quote unquote gray water that I have is my sink water, bath water. I have a washer and dryer in here, and then shower. So ultimately what I did is, have you guys ever heard of a thing called a French drain?
Yeah, we actually almost installed one in our backyard.
Yep, that's what I did. And for the people that don't know what a French drain is, it's just I dug a 6-foot trench, 4 foot deep, and then I covered the bottom layer with rock, and then you hook wherever your gray water piping is. You hook that up through PVC, and then you stab little holes throughout the entire PVC, running all the way down. And then from there, you put another layer, or you wrap it around with cloth, so that way it doesn't damage the PVC pipe. And then you put another layer of rock on it, and then dirt, and there you go. You have a budget sewage system for less than, honestly, less than like $100-$200.
And when you mentioned 15,000 before, or around that average, obviously you're saving money there.
Yep. Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, I was just like, let's try to do everything this way, to the point of it's just it's a different lifestyle. It's so cheap, but it's like I always think like, wow, we've really coped with just paying for convenience in a way.
Yeah, you're very right. So last question, and then we'll let you like plug all your socials and stuff.
Perfect.
What's been the biggest adjustment going to a tiny house, coming from what you're used to, either in an apartment or growing up in a normal home?
So biggest adjustment is probably, honestly, living with just the essentials. This tiny house is 100% essential living. Like, what do you need to survive or live off, or just live in general? I mean, I have things. I have a computer, a desktop, everything like that. But Yeah, it's like when I was in Colorado, I had a 1-bedroom apartment. I sold so much stuff. And then when time actually happened to where I was moving, I ended up selling an entire 1-bedroom apartment, 100%.
Wow.
Yep. So if you don't like giving away your things, it's going to be a little bit difficult. And then ultimately, yeah, it's more of understanding how to, I guess, live this lifestyle. If you've never have, I've never have. I grew up in the country, but I never lived this type of lifestyle. Everything that I did is just I did my research, but it was also a little winging it.
That's what you got to do sometimes. So.
Yeah. 100%.
It's real interesting you say that, because that's something I think a lot of us struggle with, is like kind of the lifestyle creep that comes with a normal lifestyle. Like, we're looking at houses right now, and I know like if we get a house that's bigger than our apartment right now, we're going to move in and then it's going to look empty. So we're going to have to fill it with a bunch of stuff and just buy more stuff. So it's kind of hard to really take that step back and say, do we really need all this? Or is it just like, are we just trying to like fill stuff up?
Yeah, I was even doing that stuff when I was in an apartment. It was just me, so I've always looked at like just stuff that I didn't need. I do, like when I was about to move tiny, I remember, I don't know if you ever heard anything about this, but I was like, I made sure to like be aware of like the things that I utilized daily. Everything else went in the trash or sold.
That's a good way to look at it.
It's
a very minimalist lifestyle. I'll say that.
It's actually funny, Alex, you mentioned like, house shopping. We're actually going to be moving in a year, probably to the West Coast in Washington State, and we're already planning on like what we should get rid of and what we should keep, and we're keeping the essentials. Anything else that we don't utilize daily, we're selling. We're not hauling with, bringing it across the country with us. So it's we've been living in our house for about 5 years, and it's amazing how much stuff you just collect over time.
Yeah. Well, maybe think of it this way. You now you have a lot of stuff that you could potentially sell and have money left over.
Yes. And
that's what I did.
And I know who to reach out to for a tiny house advice, because that could be an option for us.
That's what I'm doing over on my TikTok. That the people that ultimately built my tiny house, we're partnering now. So we're doing the whole thing to teach. That's my ultimate goal, is to help people be able to like afford their first house. I mean, I think we all know like the housing market is like insane.
Yeah.
And I guess that goes back to another reason of why did I move tiny? It was more of, I did not like, I have a Tesla car payment and it's pretty steep. But it's more of like, I couldn't see myself, like I'm 28 years old, and if I had a 30-year mortgage, I mean, I'd be so old before that time I pay that off, unless I'm doing double payments or whatever like that. And because my job is DoorDash, I'm not making a lot of money. I'm making enough to save up a little bit and be comfortable, but I'm able to attain that because of the lifestyle that I live. So
that's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. That's a good way to end it. So where can people find you if they want to learn more about tiny houses right now?
Yeah. My main right now is TikTok. It's Jack Leonard Birt. That's JackLeonard, and then BIRT. So that's all my socials: Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. There it is.
Just search for Jack.
Yes.
Yep. 100%.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, really appreciate having you on. Brandon, anything else?
Oh, I had one final question, and I'm sorry to ask. But at the end of all of our episodes, I always try to ask our guests, how are you either helping other people live the electric life, or how are you helping yourself live the electric life?
Let's see. Well, I guess through my videos, people are very curious. Although there are a lot of Tesla haters out there through the videos that I'm sure I had no idea that honestly existed.
It's crazy
until I started posting about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of it was more of showcasing, hey, I do a job that anybody can attain, which is DoorDash. Anybody, you don't have to have a degree or anything. And I was able to afford this Tesla. So, and then also my tiny house is fully electric. And me showcasing that through the videos and this entire lifestyle, I think is inspiring people to might look electric and also seeking alternative lifestyles.
Awesome.
Thank you.
That was a good answer. I always love to hear people's perspectives of, how they're improving their life by going electric. So that's great.
More of being able to save. That's my biggest thing. Save money, and then also save money, and then that way you're not living paycheck to paycheck. So the Tesla works great for me because I drive for a living, and it kind of pays for itself. Obviously, I'm able to afford the Tesla and everything, and then the tiny house is just very low maintenance. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in for that episode with Jack. Super interesting episode. Before we wrap up and send you on your way, we did get some listener mail we wanted to touch on. So Raymond B. from Minneapolis emailed us and also left a comment on our YouTube channel. And he asked, I knew cars have different charge DC peak, ID4 125 kW, Kona EV 75 kW. But my question is, what governs these charge limits? Is it all down to vehicle architecture or battery types or etc.? Enjoyed the podcast. So thanks, Raymond, for reaching out. So what's our response here, Brandon?
So obviously there's a lot of factors that play into this, but the main part is battery architecture as well as software and hardware limitations that engineers design within the battery pack. With DC fast charging, it produces a lot of heat. So one of the main factors is thermal management control. Engineers really want to make sure that battery packs are degrading quickly. So they do set some thresholds as well as limitations within the battery pack to keep that kilowatt rate at a typical or a normal standard to keep the battery healthy.
Yeah, current is like the biggest issue here. So like obviously you're limited by the battery pack voltage, but then the amperage is what they need to like figure out in terms of, is there cooling available on the vehicle? That means you're probably going to be able to handle higher current. What type of batteries do you have in there? Some batteries just handle higher currents a lot better and can handle those higher charge rates. And like you said, the software limitation might be on there as well. So they might have done some initial testing and software limited it because they know like, hey, the car can only handle this much before the batteries start getting like degraded a lot quicker and start having a lot more issues. So, but yeah, you kind of you definitely touched on your email. So, yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. And thanks, Raymond, for supporting us too, and definitely supporting Living Electric. We're excited to answer your question. And if you have any other questions, please let us know.
Yeah, definitely. We're on, you can email us, it's livingelectricpodcast@gmail.com. And, or just reach out to us on social media. Just search Living Electric Podcast. We're everywhere. So, that's all. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the jeez. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode.